APC National Executive Committee meeting ends. Members pass vote of confidence on President Buhari and party leadership.
New Secretary to Government of the Federation meets President Buhari, says APC remains committed to its promises.
Produce Sambo Dasuki in court. Federal High Court orders Department of State Services.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on the comprehensive local agriculture plan.
We shall also discuss Nigeria's lead on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index for 2018.
All right, now, among other things, some of the challenges that slow down economic development in Nigeria are the hurdles that businessmen and entrepreneurs are confronted with as they attempt to invest in the country. And over the years, this has, of course, given Nigeria the unenviable ranking as one of the most difficult places to do business in.
Indeed, these concerns led to the setting up of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PBEC, in July 2016 by President Muhammadu Buhari with a mandate to remove bureaucratic constraints to doing business in Nigeria and make the country a progressively easier place to start and grow business.
Additionally, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, then acting president, signed 3 executive orders aimed at changing the way business is done in the country. Government agencies were required and are still required to be more proactive, accountable, efficient, as well as responsive to their clients at all times.
Indeed, now these efforts appear to have made positive impact with Nigeria's lead on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index for 2018. Now, the report is titled Doing Business 2018, Reforming to Create Jobs. And that shows that Nigeria has moved up 24 places from 169th position on the 2017 ranking and also 170th position on the 2016 ranking to about 145 spot, Kingsley.
That's right. Now, for the first time also, the country has been recognized as one of the top 10 most improved economies in the world. This is alongside countries such as El Salvador, India, Malawi, Brunei Darussalam, Kosovo, Uzbekistan, Thailand, Zambia, and Djibouti. And
it will be recalled that the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, that's PBEC, was set up in July 2016 by President Muhammadu Buhari and was mandated to remove bureaucratic constraints to doing business in Nigeria, as well as make the country a progressively easier place to start and grow business.
Now, from the World Bank report, the effort by the government has started to yield positive results, and President Buhari has commended the Vice President and the team spearheading the initiative, as well as the National Assembly and the business community. So, what does this portend for the Nigerian economy? And how can this new ranking, as it were, together with what it entails, be sustained? However, what are the other hurdles there are still to be removed?
Well, of course, these and some other questions which I tried to provide answers to on Good Morning Nigeria today. Of course, as we discussed, the comprehensive local agriculture plan. We're welcoming you to the program. I am Claire Delapo Abdurazak.
All right, now the prompt for taking on the second topic, of course, has to do with the current agricultural practices in the country, together with the country's huge food import bill. to the fact that rural farmers constitute the greater percentage of agricultural producers, and unfortunately they continue to suffer from a wide variety of challenges.
Indeed, Kingsley, and we also know that the National Assembly also played its part, by passing some relevant legislations supporting the quest to make, business much easier in the country. So the questions again we would like to ask, in addition to the ones we have earlier asked, is what does this portend for Nigerian economy? How can all of these reforms be sustained? And are there other hurdles there might be to be removed? And of course, as I said earlier on, we will have guests to discuss these issues. Absolutely.
Plus the fact that we also talked about the comprehensive agricultural plan, which is how to ramp up the hoe and the cutlass or machete farming that we continue to have in the rural areas. So those are the issues we're dealing with in our discussion segment on Good Morning Nigeria.
We also have a second topic, Kingsley.
That's the one we already touched on already.
Yes, of course.
All right, we have our regular companion segments, and these include newspaper review, business, sports, as well as entertainment. Let's join our colleague now who is casting the news this morning. That's Ogechi Paul. Ogechi, morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Yeah, good morning, Kingsley and Claire, and welcome to the news segment of Good Morning Nigeria. It's trending now that the Federal Executive Council is to be expanded so as to inject fresh ideas into the government for more efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery to Nigerians. President Muhammadu Buhari, who announced this while addressing the National Executive Committee of the APC, maintains members have every reason to rejoice over the accomplishments of the governing party in the last 2 years. In the meantime, the second National Executive Committee meeting of the All Progressives Congress has ended with members passing a vote of confidence in President Muhammadu Buhari and the Chief Odige Oyegu-led National Working Committee of the party. Political correspondent Abdullahi Garba Burunkudu reports that the NEC also acknowledged government's drive towards resuscitating the economy, as the Minister of Agriculture announced that Nigeria is sufficient enough to stop rice importation by 2018.
So we'll do everything possible to reach out to whoever is aggrieved. We're not like other parties who say, oh, to hell with you. We value each and every member of this family.
Well, to the National Assembly now as the new secretary to government of the Federation, Boss Gida Mustafa, is reassuring Nigerians that the Buhari administration, well, that's a mistake there. I'll take that again. The Senate President has reassured Muhammadu Buhari that the National Assembly will continue to support and cooperate with the executive in implementing the change agenda for national development. This was an interactive dinner between the leadership of the legislature and the executive at the presidential villa. And still from the State House, the new secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Gida Mustafa, is reassuring Nigerians that the Buhari administration is irrevocably committed to fulfilling all pre-election promises of stamping out corruption, enhancing the economy, and securing the country for a prosperous future. Mr. Mustafa stated this while briefing journalists after his first formal engagement with President Buhari since his appointment last Monday. He expressed absolute confidence in the sincerity of purpose by the President to meet genuine aspirations of the people selflessly, decisively, and in the best interest of all Nigerians.
The acceleration to get out of where we are. And I can assure you that Mr. President is focused on the three-pronged approach he wants to take his government through: fight corruption, diversify the economy, and also security.
Senate President again has reaffirmed that the commitment of the 8th National to work closely with the executive to tackle corruption in all forms is without fear or favor. National Assembly correspondent Dennis Adegunloye reports that this came during a point of order raised by the Deputy Leader Bala Ibn Na'ala on President Buhari's appointment of a new secretary to government of the Federation. The lawmakers also considered motions on the preventable economic loss arising from failure to complete the National Library after 11 years. Also considered a motion on the abuse of expatriate quota by foreign nationals.
Surrounding the termination of the appointment of the former secretary to the government of the Federation emanated from this Senate. Today, we have been vindicated.
And we want to commend the government and the president for doing what is right in this matter. And as you said, when it started, it was more blackmail, but the right thing has been done. And we'll continue to vow to our commitment to fight corruption, non-selective. Non-selective, we'll fight any corruption. And we say to the public, to Nigerians, as part of our constitutional responsibility to expose corruption.
Still with the National Assembly, the House of Representatives has advised the security agencies operating in Niger's Delta to always involve experts in the destruction of illegal refineries and boats laden with petroleum products to avoid environmental degradation. This followed a motion by Representative Owoidigia Ekbogatai from Akwa Ibom State.
Experts in the destruction of these illicit oil refineries.
Following the signing into law of the Northeast Development Commission bill, the wife of the president, Aisha Buhari, has congratulated the government and the entire people of the Northeast on this major milestone. Mrs. Buhari particularly commended the role played by the leadership of the National Assembly and House committees and IDPs, refugees and Northeast initiatives under the chairmanship of Sani Zoro. She urged the appropriate authorities to ensure effective implementation of the act with optimism to bring the needed succor to the people of the Northeast ravaged by insurgency. Mrs. Buhari has been a key advocate in the struggle for the establishment of the Northeast Development Commission. She presented a position paper before the National Assembly on the 9th of May 2016. Now, Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has ordered the Department of State Services to produce Sambo Dasuki before it, following a subpoena order issued on the department. Presiding Judge Justice Okonabang gave the order for the subpoenaed witness, who is in the custody of DSS, to appear before it Wednesday. Dele Atumbi reports that Dasuki's appearance to witness is subject to the determination of the motion and notice pending before the court on stay of execution. Well, that's it on the news segment. Kingsley and Claire will continue after the break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
From our wonderful family, meet our active triplets. Mixology, for example, mixes well with drinks. Then enjoy every quick meal with Slurp It Off. And everywhere you go, there is Go-Gurt. Packed with healthy nutrition, nourishing vitamins, power of protein, strength of calcium, revitalizing energy, Hollandia yogurt is bursting with goodness inside and out. Hollandia yogurt, it's all good. Hollandia.
Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
These patriots worked together to achieve independence for one united Nigeria. Although some may say Nigeria is a mistake, we all know that the Almighty never makes mistakes.
God has not made a mistake by bringing us all together in the way that He has brought us together. God has put us together here so that we can build a community that will be an example to the entire world.
One nation bound in freedom.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
The Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, the Made in Nigeria campaign. In the midst of unprecedented multiple challenges, our great country Nigeria, as Africa's largest economy, is surely marching on to a new era of all-round prosperity, especially through re-engineered and diversified economy, powerfully driven by the change agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR.
We will patronize local entrepreneurs. We will promote the manufacturing powerhouses. Our objective is to make Nigeria a new manufacturing hub.
It is not time to complain. It is time to join the campaign. It is time for economic recovery, growth and diversification of our economy by Made in Nigeria.
All right, and we've been having an all-round good news coming from the business sector, but let's take a look at the business news this morning. Federal government targets 100 million naira monthly revenue, and that's as value-added tax, that's VAT, has also reached 797 billion naira in 2017. Amina Nojim will bring us all the details.
Good morning and welcome to Business News. Revenue from value-added tax hit 7.97 billion naira into the Federation account between January and October 2017. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, who released the details of the 2017 VAT collection in Abuja, said the highest VAT collection of 86.71 billion naira was achieved in September of 2017, while 84.67 billion naira and 83.315 billion naira were recorded in May and October. Non-oil revenue represents 46.15% of the 2017 VAT budget of 1.728 trillion naira. It is, however, an increase of 19.78% over the corresponding period in 2016. The lowest VAT earnings of 69.20 billion naira was in March of 2017. She assured that the federal government would continue to collaborate with state governments as part of its determined efforts to grow the non-oil revenue base, including raising the VAT collection to 100 billion naira monthly. The federal government gets 15% of VAT revenue, while the states and local governments receives 50% and 35%. And Nigeria will continue to enhance her products as governments put in place measures to boost the doing business environment. This was the message by Nigeria at the concluded 14th edition of the China SME Fair.
And what we are witnessing now in the matchmaking process, we are witnessing an event where our entrepreneurs will meet with the global entrepreneurs, exchange ideas, try to take benefit out of this interaction back to our country for our economic development.
Director General of the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN, Umar Rada, told participating nations that indeed Nigeria is open to genuine investors. We now take a quick look at how the equities market fared at the close of trading on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Nigeria is ranked among the 10 improvers of 36 economies in Africa that implemented 83 business reforms within the last 1 year. The World Bank Group, in its latest publication, Doing Business 2018 Reforming, Creating Jobs report, said governments in 119 economies carried out 264 reforms in the past year to create jobs, attract investment, and become more competitive. The report acknowledged that reforms in sub-Saharan Africa have been on a sustained path, citing a reduction to start a business from 61 days to the average of 22 days. Currently, the region has implemented 797 reforms in the last 15 years. And that's it on Business News for now on Good Morning Nigeria. The program continues. I am Amina Nujain.
Thank you very much, Amina Nujain, for the business package. Next for us, we'll go to the front pages of some of today's newspapers to check out the headlines.
Bayo Atoyebe, as always, is here with us. Bayo, good to see you.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, now let's take a look at the front pages of the papers. We have stories come on to some of the papers that we have this morning. The lead story, of course, matters arising from the meeting yesterday of the National Executive Committee of the ruling All Progressive Congress. This day captures it this way. It says, governors back Buhari as APC defers decision on automatic ticket. It has a rider. President pledges to expand cabinet and constitute boards of agencies soon. And for the Authority newspaper, the Authority newspaper says, I will sack ministers and enlarge cabinet. That's according to the president. That's the Authority newspaper indicating that in its late story. If we have the Authority, you will see that on the screen shortly with two riders. APC governors endorse him for second term. Another rider says, action too early, says Dogara. That's that. And then for the New Telegraph newspaper, the New Telegraph has it differently. The double-decker headline says, 2019, no automatic ticket for Buhari, and it's attributing that to governance. And APC defers decision on president's re-election. Oyegun secures confidence vote. And presidency, PDP defectors pulling APC down. Details of the story can be found inside at pages 5 and 32. Claire?
Yes, Kingsley, that story also treads on all the papers, but captioned differently. Leadership says BMB set to rejig cabinet, and then there's a rider there. We need faster approach to governance, and that's coming from the new SGF. On the front page of the Nigerian Pilot, also, Buhari to appoint more ministers, and just below that you have the economic and political reasons. So the same story running through all the papers, but of course they have come in different captions. So, Bayo, yes. How do we read?
You know, the National Executive Council meeting of the APC have been long expected. And this was, of course, obvious because of the long absence of the president due to his ailment had delayed it. But yesterday, when they met at the meeting, there were attempts to move a motion to adopt the candidate for candidature of the president for 2019. And the Executive Council said that was not the topic of the day. The agenda of the day was to review the activities of the party for 2018. And they actually listed activities for the rest of the year to include mini convention, congresses, and executive conventions. A team has been set up to do the planning and the review of the activities. However, the meeting was briefed by the Minister of Agriculture, and the highlight was that by 2018, that is by the end of this year, Nigeria will have no need to import a single grain of rice. That is as a result of the diversification of agriculture and massive investment in agriculture, particularly in rice. Yeah. It is hoped that this will permeate to other products. However,
the pronouncement made by Mr. President on, of course, the cabinet, I mean, yesterday, last night, a lot of people, started jubilating. Well, mixed reactions, following it. Some say it will help to assuage, the feelings of aggrieved, members, who have felt left out.
Yes, he actually indicated that he is planning to reconstitute the cabinet very soon. And he indicated that the long delay in addressing it was the need to ensure that the right person and right balance were sought to make sure that all parts of the country were represented. But he indicated categorically that it will be very soon.
Yeah, Bayo, that actually relates to the constitution of the boards of various parastatals.
Yes.
We had seen some appointments into those to some of those boards earlier this year, and in fact, indeed, a couple of months ago. But perhaps the twist or the slight confusion or lack of clarity has to do with the president's intention when he addressed the National Executive Committee yesterday with regard to what he intends to do with the cabinet. Now, is the intention to say, look, you are enlarging the cabinet, or you want to streamline the cabinet, make it leaner?
Well, new ideas are to be brought in.
That would also mean some cost.
And also some of the ministries are to be expanded. You are aware that some ministries have been collapsed together. We have 3 ministries in one with works, power, and housing.
That's right.
And that's been very challenging because power, for instance, is one of the cardinal programs of the government. And it is, that alone is overwhelming, not to combine it with housing and works. And works. So works also has challenge. Look at the state of federal roads across the nation. So that is why it is, the thinking is that it's better to expand it. However, the president used the occasion to assure the council members that he has delivered on his campaign promises. He said we can be proud of our achievement: Boko Haram, Niger Delta, regular fuel supply, improved power supply, TSC, agriculture, and fertilizer. And he said, above all, the knowledge that corruption will not be tolerated has gone under ascendancy, and in the international level, Nigeria is now recognized and respected for her integrity and determination to fight corruption.
That brings us to our next major story on all the papers. You know,
yes.
Nigeria being recognized now, not just in that area, but also, you know, with ease of doing business. Now, leadership has a very bold caption, and it says, World Bank scores Nigeria high on business reforms. Now, it comes with 2 riders, as AFDB backs nation's recovery plan, and FG saves $2 billion annually from local cement production. Details of that you can find on page 6. And just to take a look at the pilot, if it has its own version, I haven't seen that.
Well, it's there on the front page of This Day newspaper as well. It's above the nameplate of This Day. You have a headline and then 2 riders. Says Nigeria moves up 24 places in World Bank's Doing Business report, and Nigeria ranked 10 among 10 most improved global economies, and President hails rise in ranking. Bayo.
Yes, there are actually 2 ratings. One is that Nigeria, for the first time, is to be one of the 10 most top improved economies in the world. The second one is that, among others, Nigeria is one of the 10 reformers across the world. This is a World Bank rating that was published yesterday. Also, the African Development Bank has also come to emphasize its support of Nigeria's economic recovery program. It has also belied the publication in some media that it has withdrawn the support of about $500 million that it promised as a loan to Nigeria. It said because of the confidence it has in Nigeria's economy, that loan is still ongoing. But our hearts must go out to the Second Republic Vice President, Dr. Alex Ekweme. He is reported to have collapsed in his home in Enugu. He is now in intensive care in a hospital in Enugu. He has been visited by the governor of Enugu State as well as Mr. Peter Obi, and it is said that an arrangement is being made to fly him abroad because his condition is such that he's already lapsed into a coma. However, President Muhammadu Buhari too is expected to make his commiserations about and wishes of quick recovery. In fact, he congratulated him only 10 days ago when he turned 85.
Wish him a speedy recovery and that he gets out of that situation. Now, there are other headlines, of course, that we have on the front pages of the papers. The story that continues to trend, the story relating to Mina and the pension scandal. That story is there on the front page of New Telegraph. It's actually at the bottom half of New Telegraph. It says, with a kicker, pension scam. Government officials receiving interest from £6 million offshore. That's according to Mena. That story is also there from on the front page of This Day newspaper. This Day has it, that's beside the photograph there, says 300 million naira was stolen daily from pensioners, alleges Miner, and says assassins are after him.
There's a related story, Kingsley,
That's right.
on the foot page of the leadership, and that has to do with Luther's trial. And Justice Galadima replaces Salami as committee chairman. And we understand that his swearing-in might be this morning, according to the leadership newspaper. You want to speak to
yes,
this?
it's called the Kotrimko, the Corruption and Financial Crimes Cases Trial Monitoring Committee. You recall that Justice Ayo Salami declined to be chairman of that, but the retired Justice Suleiman Galadima has now been appointed to stand in the shoes. Justice Galadima is expected to be sworn in today. He also retired from the Supreme Court last October. But meanwhile, the Federal Executive Council is expected to meet at its usual Wednesday meeting today, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation is designated is expected to be sworn in today.
The new boss.
The boss, Gida Mustafa is the name, and he said he met with the President yesterday, and he said his role will be, among others, to coordinate effective implementation of government policies.
I just have one story, pilot again at the bottom. NAS may not pass 2018 budget before December 31st.
All right, then there's another story. We'll take this one from one of the numerous headlines on the front page of the Authority newspaper above the nameplate. This story has been on. I'm sure Claire and Bayo, you must have encountered this story earlier. Condemnations trail alleged pimping of Unity Schools students for 5,000 naira. Details of that story can be found on page 4 of the Authority newspaper. It's said that, one of the Unity Schools, you have an official, who's pimping the pupils. That's a very serious issue.
Serious one. I think the Ministry of Education must quickly arrest that. We're just coming out of the unfortunate incident of infection for students. We remember Federal Government Girls College, Lagos.
Queen's College.
Queen's College, Lagos. And now we have the challenges
there's been an investigative committee. The Federal Ministry of Education, I learned to set up a committee to investigate that incident. It was something set up, put out by the Old Girls Association of Queen's College.
Also talking about corruption, Abu Rashid Mena is fighting back, and he says that he has recovered a lot of monies from pension thieves that is being made, and he's saying he is being subjected to media trial, and also people are after his life. So we've not had all the facts, but however, nobody knows his whereabouts as of now. Indication has been given that he's been declared wanted by Interpol now.
Yeah, the point is, where is he? All right, thank you very much for being with us today. We'll see you again tomorrow for the review segment.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's see Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we have 2 items for our discussion segment.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No, now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jab questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I am sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Later.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, thank you for being there. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. Let's begin our conversation for our first topic, and that's, of course, on ease of doing business. And as you must have heard, Nigeria has moved up 24 places to 145th place in the World Bank's Doing Business report published yesterday. And for the first time in the country's history, Nigeria has been recognized as one of the top 10 most improved economies in the world. Now, the World Bank Doing Business project provides objective measures of business regulations and their enforcement across 190 economies, that's countries. Now, the World Bank highlighted 5 reforms, making it easier to do business in 2 commercial cities of Kano and Lagos. Now, those are the areas that were covered by the report in Nigeria over the course of last year. That's the areas where reforms have taken place: starting a business, dealing with construction permits, registering property, getting credit and paying taxes. Now, in the area of company registration, the Corporate Affairs Commission has moved to offer online registration and introduced new features such as electronic stamping of registration documents.
All right, Claire, thank you very much there. Now we have 2 guests with us here in the studios to discuss the matters connected with the latest ranking of Nigeria in terms of ease of doing business. First at this time, we'd like to welcome distinguished Senator Rafiu Ibrahim. He's chairman of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions. Distinguished Senator, pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And yes, Kingsley, we also have with us Mr. Nnanna Ude, and he's the alternate chair, Technical Committee, National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable, and he's also the chair, Technical Committee, Nigerian Economic Summit Group. We'd like to thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's begin straight away with Nnanna Ude. What is the significance of the report released by the World Bank with regard to Nigeria's latest ranking on ease of doing business?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kingsley. When the report was released, the first thing that came to my mind is this is the power of collaboration, because the government identified ease of doing business very early on as an imperative that needs to be addressed, provided leadership and mobilized all actors from the private sector, from the legislature, the executive, and even the judiciary. When we begin to analyze the numbers, you will see even the role that the judiciary have played. So the significance of it all is that, one, it's signaling. You know, the key outcome of any reform, the first outcome is signaling. It sends a signal that we're on the right track. It sends a signal to the business community that we are improving the business environment in Nigeria. And so, because the size of the economy is attractive, but has been hampered by the doing business environment, once a report like this comes from a body like the World Bank, it sends the right signal. It sends a validation message out there to the investing public that Nigeria is now ready for business and open for more business. That's the key.
All right, let's just get the perspective of the distinguished Senator Rafiu Ibrahim. How does the legislature see this development?
Yeah, thank you very much. We, as an arm of government, from the inception of the 8th National Assembly, as far back as February 2016, we set up what the NASBAD as the National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable, because we identify in our legislative agenda the importance of collaboration, as enumerated by Nnanna. We set that up and we prioritize bills that will improve ease of doing business in Nigeria. And I'm lucky to be one of those inspired by the leadership of the National Assembly, that is the Senate President, Senator Dr. Bukola Saraki, to instigate some bills that we automatically encourage
business environments in Nigeria. And I'll give you an insight into that. So we are happy the result is coming. And we believe legislation is the most sustainable tool to use for ease of doing business. Executive orders is good, but not sustainable because of change in government. But legislation all over the world. And if you look at it, let me give you an example of the bills that help seriously, which luckily I'm happy to be the one that sponsored the bills in the Senate angle of the National Assembly. That is the Credit Reporting Bill Act and the Secure Transaction Immovable Asset as Collateral Registry Act. Signed on 30th May, the two were signed on 30th May by the acting president then, which significantly make us to be where we are today. If you look at the indicators, the most improved indicator is getting credit from 33 to 6. And that is what really gave us the 145. If you look at the numbers, it's an average from 33 to 6. We are now number 6 in getting credit because of all those bills. If you look at the resolving insolvency, we are not that good. We have passed the insolvency bills, but has not been signed into law. So as legislature, we will continue to do our work because we already set our own agenda, which we are focusing on and we are working on. So we're happy for Nigerians that we are now recognized, and it's going to attract business, it's going to attract investor, both direct investor and portfolio investors into Nigeria. Okay. So we are very glad.
Okay, thank you, distinguished Senator. Again, let's get back to Nana. He started talking about some of the reforms, and he talked about the Credit Reporting Act and the Collateral Registry Bill. Now, you want to talk to us more about this and how it has helped to, achieve the objectives of reforming and creating jobs.
Well, the Secure Transaction Immovable Assets, the Collateral Registry, will enable SMEs have access to credit using their movable assets as collateral. One of the challenges in access to credit is collateral. I mean, most of the time, the banks will require you to have either a fixed asset, a landed property, which most SMEs don't have. And in many advanced economies across the world, that's no longer the trend. You can have your movable assets registered in a collateral registry and use it to access credit. The same with credit reporting. In many advanced economies over the world, there are credit ratings. If you approach a bank for credit, they are able to look at your rating and know if you are creditworthy. So with that credit bureau that will be established, it will now be easier for SMEs to build up their ratings. So when they want to access credit, simply the ratings can do it for them without necessarily being able to have all the collateral that is required. So it will be a major boost for the SMEs in terms of growing their businesses and creating more jobs. It's a major one, which is why, like the senator said, the quantum leap we achieved is actually from 44 to 6.
From 44 to 6.
For 6 that we did with that, which is very significant. Very, very significant for us to have achieved that.
I'm wondering, Mr. Nana Ude and distinguished senator, this obviously some persons, some analysts indicate that, look, these are early days, for instance. Ease of access to credit, the credit bureau, we have to see them in operation. But as you indicated, there's some signaling that has occurred with regard to the various policy measures that the government has introduced together with legislation. But crunching it, what would this mean, for instance, to persons who are in the business environment in Nigeria, small-scale business persons who say, I want to have access to credit? Do we now have a change as it used to, from what it used to be with regard to accessing credit from microfinance banks? Do we also now have an alteration of what used to be the very dismal figures from the various institutions, including the CBN? They had all kinds of billions and billions, and nobody could access them. What is the story now?
Yeah, but which speaks to what the senator said earlier on. Until we had these legislations, a legislation underpins any reform process. All of the efforts that have been made before were through policy pronouncements, which a government can even change itself, even before another government comes to change it. So our expectation is that because it is now underpinned by legislation, and that's our argument in NASBA, or let us have this legislation so that if you are breaking the law, we know you are breaking the law, rather than have a policy pronouncement that is not effectively pursued or implemented to the letter. Now, when you have these reforms in laws, it's easy to track those who are violating the law. And because when you have a law, there are penalties for breaking the law. So with this collateral, it's going to be established at the CBN. It's going to happen. We are now going to license credit bureaus. That will happen. And they will be obligated to perform the task. It's like what we did with pension reform. Once there was a legislation to underpin pension reform, you then had all the PFAs and all that. And they now had a regulatory environment upon which they were operating. So that's the significance of using laws to underpin reforms, which the National Assembly has driven.
Okay, distinguished Senator,
yes.
What's your take on this with regard to ease of doing business, ease of access to credit in operation?
Yeah. As an information to the public, the central bank has established the collateral registry in respect of the secure transaction in movable assets, which is the most important. Since the act has been signed by the president, by the acting president, then on behalf of the president, they have moved, and the collateral registry is now fully established in the central bank.
What does that mean for
what it means for an ordinary man is that if I'm a businessman, what I have in my office as furniture, as even including my personal ornament, can be used to access credit, instead of insisting that I must have land, the property. If you look at the angle of registering property, you can see that we have not really improved on that. If you look at the indicators, we have not really improved on that. But now that we have this collateral registry, that you must be aware that more than 80% of our business is by the MSMEs.
Okay. So that removes the collateral
obstacle for small business.
What about the credit data, bank?
That is the credit reporting bill.
Yes.
So before, we have only 3 credit bureaus. But with this act now, there are a lot of applications in the central bank because our committee oversights central bank. So we have many credit bureaus. There are some that we just concentrate on FCT and have the data. So if you approach even a microfinance bank, you just need to approach a credit bureau and assess your credit rating, just like Unana said. And with ease, they'll be able to assess you and know if they can give you money for that business or not. You must always note.
So with this credit rating, what does it mean? Is it by percent? Okay, you are credit worthy. Okay, you
yeah, it is about how you have performed in the past on what you have assessed.
And servicing your
loan. Yeah. Even when you are working here, it will be in the record.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
That probably you took a housing loan and you are able to follow up with payment. It will be in the record.
I'm wondering, gentlemen, Nana, we've always had you on the program to discuss matters relating to how to better reform the economy. And the happy news is, of course, what we are seeing now. But going forward, as I said, these are still early days. Going forward, what is it that we need to do more? For instance, the report is based on occurrences in Lagos and Kano, principally. There are 36 states in the Federation, plus the FCT. Of course, the report doesn't have to cover all the states. What does this then mean with regard to other states where you have towns and cities, where businesses also take place, and where perhaps we still have some of the notorious bottlenecks?
Okay, there are 2 approaches going forward. First of all, like you had indicated, we have 10 indicators. Out of the 10 indicators, we didn't do well. We moved back on about 3 of them. We moved back on trading across borders. We moved back on resolving insolvency, the senator said it, and we also moved back on protecting minority investors. So we need to make progress on that. Take the trading across borders, for instance. We need to operationalize the single window trading portal that the government has been talking about. That will also push us further up once we're able to achieve that. Resolving insolvency, like the senator said, the National Assembly has passed the insolvency bill. Let it be signed into law. That will take care of that. Protecting minority investors. The National Assembly is also currently reviewing the Investment and Securities Act. Once that process is on, then we move just by 8 points on registering businesses. So we also need to underpin the reforms in CAC through the current review of CAMA. So that's that with that. Now, talking about the states, we in the NESG, we had also anticipated this. So at the last Economic Summit, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the Nigerian Governors Forum on ease of doing business in the states and economic competitiveness. Because we recognize that every business is a tenant of a state. And we cannot rely on rankings only done in Lagos and Kano. So that MOU was signed between the chairman of the Governors Forum and the chairman of the NESG. And this Friday, we're going to have the very first meeting on the framework for implementing that MOU. And the key elements of that MOU is simply ease of doing business in the states, all the 36 states of the Federation, and economic competitiveness. So this can give you an indication as to where we are heading to moving forward.
Okay, let's look at, like you said, you know, Nigeria was scored on the, I don't know, 8 points or 10 points? 10-point areas where the presidential PBEC, you know, was mandated to work on. But let's start with starting a business. How has that changed? If we moved from 130, you know, from 138 in 2017 to 130. So how has that changed? How has that been able to change unless a small business, person?
By the report, for instance, they've reduced the number of days from 25 days in 2017 to 18 days now. That's what the report says. Also, the procedures have also reduced slightly. Yeah, it wasn't much, but 8.7 to 8.5, thereabout. So, but the fact that we now have online registration portal has also eased it. Where they're heading to is also for us to be able to reduce the requirement to have a lawyer to register your company. So you can, if as a business person, go online and register your company without necessarily having a lawyer. But when you then want to then have more complicated procedures, you can then bring a lawyer. That is what the KAMA review that we are doing currently with the National Assembly is also designed to achieve, to reduce the requirement to have a lawyer at the early stages of registering businesses. So if we continue that, and like the Senator said, underpin it with the law, reviewing it, because what has happened is executive orders, and they have done that. But when the KAMA itself, the Companies and Allied Matters Act, is reviewed to underpin those reforms, then we expect we'll make a bigger impact.
All right, Donald, thanks. Distinguished Senator, for some of our viewers who are watching, there probably will be some concerns. Does ease of doing business necessarily translate into viability of business?
Not automatically, but it's going to gradually help, because environment is very important to business survival. So we believe that if all these bottlenecks are able to ease out, it's easier for both the businesses and those business support services to thrive. And once we are able to achieve that to an optimal level, most businesses will survive. Once you have a focus, you have a niche you create for yourself, you will be able. And once, I want to emphasize, once most of our MSME can survive, can remain in business for as long as the economy, because we have the numbers, just like Nana said, we have the numbers, the population is there, the market is there. So Nigeria's economy is very attractive to many investors in the world. So once we are able to focus on all these reforms and pin it down by legislation, that even for an investor coming abroad is sure that this is pinned down no matter change in government, we believe that will culminate into viability.
All right, no, let's get your take on this.
I just also want to make a point. You know, I talked about the role of the judiciary. Another indicator that we made a very huge leap is that of enforcing contracts. We moved actually 43 places from 139 to 96. What that entailed was that the duration in enforcing contracts through the court process was reduced from 509 days to 454 days. And this is part of what we know to be the ongoing reform of the judicial process. So it's also important to place on record the effort of the judiciary in also putting us where we are now, because that's actually where we had the highest leap. we moved 43 on that alone, and the judiciary must...
Yeah, just before we come back again to some of the specific legal provisions that we have seen, I would like you to also make a comment on this, because if you have millions of SME operators out there, and you're saying ease of doing business, it will sound positive to their ears, but once they get into the field, they are wondering whether ease of doing business also means, as I asked earlier, viability.
Well, one of the things that this particular ranking will do is going to also put pressure on both the government and the country to sustain the reforms. We have just taken the first shot, and it was a good shot at it. Nobody has said that we are there yet, but we are. It all indicates that we're on track. It puts pressure on the presidency, it puts pressure on the legislature, it puts pressure on the organized private sector to ensure that what we need to do to make businesses viable have to happen. We're not there yet, we all agree to that. But what this tells us is that we're on track, and we should continue to remain on track. So we are not here to sound a triumphal that we have landed and that Nigeria is now a place where you can come in and do. We are, after all, I mean, we've moved 24 places, but we're still 145 out of 190. So that's also a reality.
Much better than
yes.
where we were.
One better, we were 169.
We're climbing out of the bottom of the pit.
We are coming out of the bottom of the pit, and it's very important that that is significant. So, but it doesn't say that we are there yet. We still have to move one forward. The target is to also place us among the top 50. It's when we get there that we can begin to sing a triumphal.
How does it reflect with regards to the MDAs? Where you have a lot of all the, bureaucracies, with regards to movement of files and documents.
Well, again, that is another bottleneck. For us at the NESG, in addition to our collaboration with the National Assembly and the executive on this, we also are working with the civil service in terms of civil service reforms that will ease regulations. That's why when we talk about single window, it's supposed to achieve that. It's supposed to create a portal where all the regulatory agencies that are involved in trade across borders can be on one portal. So once you domicile your documents on that portal, whether it is NAFDAC or Customs or MPA, they will all use that same portal to make it easy for you to do trading across borders. We want to translate that across board with SON and all other agencies of government that have to do with ease of doing business. We've started the process. We hope this will encourage them to know that we need to stay on course. That's the good thing about what has happened. This should encourage them to keep us on course.
All right. Thank you very much. Baby steps, but very significant, as you have also indicated. Distinguished Senator, in terms of actually seeking to ensure that all other factors continue to drive ease of doing business, business viability, and so on and so forth, what would be the legislature's response to the other critical factors usually in the macroeconomic environment, namely the rates? We're dealing here with the interest rate. So you have easy access to credit, but if interest rate is still 25 or 30%, it makes nonsense of everything. You also have rate of inflation. It's still double digits, although it's climbing down gradually. And then you also, of course, have the foreign exchange rate, which is stabilizing now around about 360 or thereabout. So what would be the legislature's response to some of these critical rates that are also problematic in our macroeconomic environment?
I'm happy that you have spoken about the inflation rates that is, and the forex is at least under a manageable condition. But for the interest rate, some months ago, the National Assembly, with the initiative of our leadership, took up both the fiscal and the monetary authorities on interest rate. And that is when we identify that what is driving the interest rate crazy is the concentration of the government in the domestic market. And you can see the government has responded to that. And that is why you see the president bringing $5.5 billion request to the National Assembly. Out of that $5.5 billion, $3 billion is to pay off domestic debt. So once government, if you look at the books of most of the banks today, their major income stream is in treasury bills and bonds.
That's right.
Because it's easy, and you can't blame them. Because if I'm a bank investor, you go for less risky business with juicy income. So, but by the time the government is no more crowding the domestic market, and the private sector, the MSME has space, the banks both the banks at all levels, the DMBs, the microfinance bank, the mortgage institutions, all of them will price appropriately, because there will now be competition. You have now have huge liability, which you know that you must lend to businesses at very competitive rate. So, and this is already happening. So we hope, just like all of us have been emphasizing, we have to continue to focus on all these reforms. We have to continue to focus on all these indicators. We cannot celebrate yet, but we are out of the leap, just like the presenter said. We're out of the leap, but we must continue to concentrate on
in addition to what has been said, we also want to dilute the narrative on access to credit as it relates to interest rates. At the last summit, one of the things we tried to do, how can we raise capital for small businesses outside of bank credit? In other advanced economies, you have private equity, you have venture capital, you have peer-to-peer lending, you have crowdfunding. And that was our focus at this last summit. What is the regulatory environment that is inhibiting those other alternative frameworks for investment from coming into SMEs? And we had a very robust discussion on that. If we can dilute that, because one of the things we said in planning the summit was there is so much emphasis on what the interest rate is doing or what inflation rate is doing and all that on SMEs. Good for us to talk about it. But other developing economies don't sit back and say, throw their hands in the air and say, because interest rate is like this, we can't raise funds for SMEs. There are other framework that I use.
But the distinguished senator already raised the point, and I'm sure you also touched on this. If you recall, when we discussed, the rate at which government was borrowing, treasury-based minimum 18%.
Minimum.
And then of course you had the
I'm not trying to detract from that. What I'm only saying is that in addition to that, we should also look at alternative frameworks for raising capital.
If you look at the setting up of the Development Bank of Nigeria, which is already operational, their focus is on MSMEs, and it's going to be an wholesale bank. And the setting up includes that's our Nigerian government, that is the central bank, the MOFI, that's the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, and the NSIA, plus IFIs all over the world are setting up the banks. And they are to on-lend wholesale to microfinance banks, not to deposit money banks, so that it will go direct to MSME. I have information I have not confirmed that they've disbursed to about 3 MFBs in the previous week. So with that, and the funding they are accessing from the international financial institution is a single digit, and they are going to on-lend a single digit, and the microfinance bank must lend to the businesses a single digit. Right. Just like he said, we must consciously as a government
okay, gentlemen,
be on top of the table on all these issues.
We have tweets, here with us, of course, making their own contributions and reacting to some of the things you have said. And when we come back, we'll quickly look at, surprising indicators here, electricity and, paying of tax, quite surprising here, the growth. So let's quickly take our tweets now. Kingsley.
While Mukhtar has this tweet, says the ease of doing business agenda it's just happening in the media. Multiple taxation alone would never allow startups to thrive.
All right. This one is from Mohammed Jamil Sadara. It's obvious Nigeria's business milieu is now than ever proactive, real instead of virtual on papers and secured.
Festus Akimboyewa, improvement in Nigeria's ranking on ease of doing business will only be meaningful when it translates to creating jobs for millions of our jobless youth.
And Kolawole Obasonya tweets, often overlooked in the ease of doing business for SMEs, discourse is activities of local government thugs impeding free movement of goods.
And Mohammed Sadara again has another tweet. It says, we need government policies and summits of global standards that will essentially promote made in Nigeria products. And
Yakubu M. Bala tweets, alternative methods that can be used by banks to reduce the risk they are exposed to by leading to new and small businesses is crucial.
Yeah, that's be lending, I believe. Claire.
By
That's,
lending,
yeah.
lending.
All right, Jibril Naina tweet says states too must adopt federal government plan of ease of doing business in order to grow higher and higher. And business registration should also be made easier. Business registration, one, is not the business of states. And Nana Ude has already spoken to the collaboration between the NSG and the Governors Forum. Yes.
And Dele Jack Solomon tweets, let federal government use the appreciation in finance and insurance, which rose sharply, to support agri, manufacturing and other sectors having slow growth.
All right, these are the tweets that we have for our viewers, who have also responded to all of this. Well, gentlemen, of course, there will always be a number of issues for us to discuss. Claire was talking earlier about power, and of course, everybody complains about power, infrastructure. There's also the question of taxation, and the one that Nana they also raised, which has to do with the corporate environment, minority protection, and so on and so forth. These are matters, of course, we'll take a look at going forward. But gentlemen, we'd like to appreciate your being with us. Senator Rafiu Ibrahim, that's chair of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions. Thanks a lot for being our guest this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We also would like to appreciate Nana Ude, regular face on Good Morning Nigeria. He's of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Thanks a lot for your insights.
Thank you so much for having me once again.
All right. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll deal with our second topic, which is on agriculture.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, we get on now, and C-LAP is a comprehensive local agricultural plan, and it's targeted at local farmers, of course, with intention of boosting food security. That's the next topic, but let's listen to Saliu Abdullahi's background report to set the tone for our conversation.
That Nigeria is endowed with every attribute suitable for agricultural development is not in doubt. What is yet to get satisfactory explanation is the reason behind the nation's inability to feed itself. Little wonder, most Nigerians find it embarrassing and unacceptable that Nigeria spends over 1 trillion naira annually to import food. Sadly, such food products like rice, wheat, sugar, fish, meat, and so on can be produced in Nigeria and even exported. Nigeria, according to experts, has the land, water, labor, and many other indices that determine success in agriculture. After Nigeria slipped into recession, so much was attributed to the neglect of agriculture and overdependence on oil, which aggravated the situation. As part of the effort to get Nigeria out of recession, the Buhari administration commenced a vigorous diversification of the economy, with agriculture leading the pack. President Muhammadu Buhari subsequently launched the Nigeria Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, to restore the nation's economy and get the country out of recession. Nigeria, no doubt, has had and tried numerous policies on agriculture. While some of the policies made the desired impact, others failed due to what analysts attribute to policy inconsistency. With about 70% of the country's population living in rural areas and depending on agriculture for livelihood, the question of how rural agriculture can be enhanced is very crucial. Through a public-private arrangement, A platform to boost agricultural activities in the rural areas has been unveiled. The comprehensive local agriculture plan, according to the initiators, is expected to create over 1 million agri-related jobs at the rural areas. At the launch of the program in Abuja, the initiators explained that comprehensive local agriculture program will facilitate utilization of scarce natural, physical and financial resources and create wealth and jobs for the teeming population. It is also targeted at integrated action plan to fast-track development of local government areas, develop infrastructure, and develop cropping system that will improve farmers' income. The question observers are raising is to what extent can this initiative succeed given the record of previous programs that started well but failed to make the desired impact? Who are the actors needed in this project and what roles are they expected to play? These are questions that guests on Good Morning Nigeria are set to answer.
Well, Salih Abdullahi, thank you very much. You already popped some of the questions for our guests, and we have 3 of them right here with us in the studios. First, we would like to at this time welcome the chairman of the C-Lab project. He's Mr. Dumebi Kachuku. Mr. Kachuku, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And then we also have with us Dr. Tane Joshi. He's Director, Projects and International Cooperation. Dr. Joshi, pleasure that you're with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And we also have Professor Bolagade Ayola, Professor of Agricultural Economics and Policy, and he's also President Farm and Infrastructure Foundation, FIF, and Chairman Voices for Food Security, VFS. I think I like that last one.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir, on the program.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the chairman of the C-Lab project. We got some insight into what C-Lab is all about, but exactly what are you seeking to achieve and how do you intend to achieve this?
Thank you very much. C-Lab is a comprehensive local agriculture plan. Essentially, what we want to do is to start at the local government level to gather all the relevant data concerning agriculture, concerning the rural areas. So we go into the local governments, we appoint people to gather data, so they get the land bank, they get soil statistics, they get the cropping patterns in the local government area. After we get all the relevant data, we then prepare a plan. So if you take, say, my local government, for example, Anocha North local government area, they are growing cassava there. But does it make sense for them to grow cassava there? We are looking at making sure that farmers grow what they have comparative advantage in growing. You look at, say, local government in Kano, for example, where they grow millet. Does it make sense for them to grow millet? So the whole idea of C-Lab is for us to plan at the local level what farmers should be doing. When we finish with the plan, we make the plan available to everyone. So if you finish school, for example, and you want to go into farming, you have a plan that you can use. You know, you have a business model that we've created for you that shows you in this local government, these are the output you can expect. This is what you can grow there. This is the market you can take it to. We plan the farming. We design a farm in each local government area, what we call an integrated model farm, starting from 5 hectares and above. In that farm, we grow all the produce that local government has comparative advantage in growing. So the farmers in that local government come to our farms as centers of excellence where they can see proper farming practices, where they can be trained, and where they have farming implements. So in each of those farms also, we have what we call farm service centers. In the farm service centers, you have access to tractors and mechanization services. You have access to seeds and all that other farming inputs. After that, the next phase is the market. What do we then do? We create what we call a structured farmers market in each local government. So whatever they produce, you take it to this farmers market, where we guarantee the farmers, who we call agripreneurs, that what they have produced, we are guaranteed off-takers for that produce. Okay? So whatever you produce in each LGA, we have created the market for that to take it off you. So it's not a situation where you produce something and you don't have a market for this produce. We then have a chain of retail stores across the country that is a franchise model. In the UK, you have so Tesco's or Marks and Spencer. We have a model here, what we call food marts. That's a franchise model. We aggregate the produce from all the farms and we send it to these grocery stores across the country where our franchisees are taking off this produce. Then also, we also have a mega food park in each state. We design the mega food park customized to the farming produce for each state. So then the private sector can come in. If you want to process corn, for example, you want to make starch, you want to make baby food, you want to make shrimps for export, whatever it is, you have a mega food park where you can come in, bring your investment, you bring your equipment, you know that you have light, you have power, you have water, you know you can come in there, you have sorting facilities, every single thing that needs to be done. This is the model that we see in most developed countries. Eventually, by the time you aggregate all these things, we expect that in the next 3 years, we're looking at over 1 million jobs starting from the local government area. Like like was said in the report, we have 70% of the population of Nigeria living in the rural areas. A lot of the plans that have been done in agriculture have been done from the federal government level, going down there, and you see that there's been a disconnect. So this is the first time that you are seeing a plan that comes from the local government level or from the rural areas up to the top, where we expect to then intersect with the plans by the federal government.
I liked that you talked about the bottom top. But let me bring in the Chief Operating Officer of the project, Dr. Joshi. Most times when we talk about, taking it from bottom top, rural, focused, we get a different interpretation. And like the correspondent asked in the background report, who are the actors? Who exactly are you, relating with? Are they the smallholder farmers?
Well, see, as he has already said, that it is a bottom-up approach program wherein we are targeting people from the bottom. So, of course, your 80% of population, the farming population is smallholder farmers. So, absolutely, we are targeting these smallholder farmers, and simultaneously, we would try to improve the commercial agricultural situation of Nigeria by helping the large-scale farmers as well. But with the population of the small-scale farmers, we have to target developing these clusters for these farmers so that they can jointly work on the development of agriculture or whatever they are growing. So we will try and identify certain clusters, like we'll have rice clusters in the areas, the belts where we have good agroclimatic zones for growing rice. The same way we'll do it for several other agricultural commodities.
All right, Dr. Joshi, thank you very much. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Professor Bolagade Ayola, of course, we've had you frequently on Good Morning Nigeria when we're discussing agriculture. From the explanation profiled by the chairman of CLAP, is there a sense in which CLAP is perhaps attempting to bite more than it can conveniently chew? I ask this against the background of what he says that the mandate would be. Purporting to be a research council, purporting to be a private agricultural think tank, also purporting to be a marketing board, all of this rolled into one?
I don't think they are biting more than what they can chew. Their intervention is trying to focus the bottom environment. If you look at the policy environment, you can layer it into three. The macro environment is what your recent topic deals with. We also have the meso environment, and we have the local environment, which we may also call the micro environment. The SILA project is focusing the micro environment closely with a view to modeling how things should be at that environment. As we speak of trickling down from macro to meso and micro, the same way we can think of the advantages of focusing on micro environment from micro to meso and to the macro at large. So all the items in the package are complementary, and if we have a project that treat them as complementary and package them together, it will work better for us in the country than the isolated approaches to all these things we have had before, What we only wish is that they have sufficient capacity to look in all these areas and energize the actors that are involved well enough to be able to play all the roles. Otherwise, it's like trying to demonstrate at the micro level what should be done as different from what is presently being done. So the aspects of infrastructure is key, the aspects of marketing is key, and you cannot separate all these aspects. The aspects of focusing the small-scale farmers is key, and in all this, data are important to be kept and to be utilized for the progress of the scheme. So this is the point at which I like this program, because it's moving from bottom up as opposed to our traditional top-down approaches, and it is distinct and it is unique. The first of the kind I will observe at the workshop. I made that point. Most people thought it was casual point. This is the first time we will see an effort right from the grassroots in taking up planning of agriculture upwards. Before, we have efforts from the micro, where federal government takes the space and hoping that what is done up there will be translated down, and people will benefit. But that is a long route. Also, we have domination of the meso environment, where the state governments also dominate the middle. But focusing and starting from the local is unique and the first.
I'm wondering, Professor Ayola, just before we bring in Kachuku again into this issue. 30 years ago, during the military regime of General Ibrahim Babangida, the country had DIFRI, which was the Directorate of Foods, Roads and Rural Infrastructure. And that's a government. And then the governance structure for DIFRI was such that you were supposed to have DIFRI in all parts of the country. How is this in any way different from that, if you are a private entity and purporting to be a government?
Your example is indicative of the reason for failure of DIFRI in the first instance. You will notice that DIFRI you cite was short-lived because it was operating from the highest level of political authority, and it was difficult to make the impact desired in terms of infrastructure at the rural grassroots level. DIFRI was domiciled in the presidency. You can see that. And before you travel from presidency to effect my own mother in the village, the road is very, very long. In this case, if DIFRI had been planned in such a way that it started from bottom up, it would have worked better. All the infrastructures that DIFRI put in place, particularly rural road networks, rural water supply schemes, borehole schemes, rural storage facilities, and so on and so forth, all of them disappeared as soon as DIFRI disappeared. So it is only when you start from the beginning that you can endure well enough. And that is where the majority of indeed, is in the local level people live. So when you are trying to impact on livelihoods of the people, it is better to focus that. And that is the issue about policy environment. The policy environment we emphasize in this country favors the micro and meso, so much to the neglect of the local micro. And that is also why the institution at that level, like the local governments, who are supposed to play critical roles, are inactive in the process. If you look at CLAP, the focal point is the Algon, the people who control and who administer the policy environment at the local level. That is a plus for this program. It gives us a lot of hope in future.
Professor Ayola, again, the people who would really have, this need for your intervention, or who really have a challenge with regards to food production, are really not the people, from some perspective, are not the people you're targeting. Those that really have a need and whose needs are, multifaceted, are those smallhold farmers at the local government levels. Do you have a clear understanding of what the real challenge they face and their real needs are?
That's why CLAP, because CLAP actually plans their needs with them. That's why we have people at the local government level. That's why we're working with the local government. CLAP is a partnership with all the local governments in Nigeria. Okay, it's not it's private sector led in partnership with local governments in Nigeria, because we realize that governance at the local government level is suffering. They are not really, every month they get their FAC allocation, and all they are doing is paying salaries. They have no money to do any infrastructure. They have no money to impact the rural people. As I said earlier on, 70% of Nigerians live in the rural areas. So all the policies, a lot of the programs that have been done, like he said with D-Free, a lot of them fail because when you start at the top, by the time you get to the bottom there's a huge disconnect. A lot of the farmers you get from at the top are political farmers. If you talk about giving out tractors, you find that those tractors don't get to the people they're supposed to get to. They get to political farmers, friends, relatives, and all those things. But what we're trying to do is to energize the local government councils to let them know that the economy of Nigeria is actually in their hands. If they have a plan, if they have an economy that they can create with the land bank and the land mass they have, with the farmers that they have, Nigeria will definitely change. We're talking about 14.2% unemployment rate in Nigeria right now. And unemployment is defined as the percentage of people who are actively looking for jobs. What are the people who are not looking for jobs anymore because they'll look for jobs for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years? They're not looking for jobs anymore. Or the people who don't even bother to look for jobs because they know people who are looking for jobs. Okay?
Most of these farmers, it's not as if they don't know what to produce or how to produce. The real challenge is probably, marketing the products, value, value chain, and of course, preservation, getting it out, and all that.
Just to piggyback on that question asked by my colleague Claire, I asked the question earlier of Professor Ayola, namely, yes, you have now elaborated. This is a private. It's a PPP in a sense. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
That's and the public in that is the local government.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, but some of the items that you ticked off earlier with regard to what you intend to do, that's why I asked whether you're biting more than you could chew. You want to purport to be a marketing board. You want to purport, to be an agricultural think tank, an agricultural research council, which we already have, and so on and so forth. Have you tried to assume, for instance, that perhaps this might be too humongous for you to handle?
Good question. So we're not purporting to be a marketing board, for example. All we have done is come together to work out a plan at the local government level. All we are giving to Nigerians, to the public, is a plan, a business plan that starts at the local government level. And in getting this plan done, we have a lot of international partners who saw in the media, for example, people saw in the media, social media, what we're trying to do. And we had at least 37 international organizations who wrote to us and said, we support this plan, we want to be part of this plan. At the conference, they were all there. We have institutions like International Rice Institute of Manila, we have Africa Rice, we have Michigan State University, we have GB Pant University. A lot of international institutions saw what we're doing and said, we want to support you in getting this done. Our job is to prepare the plan for people to know what they have to do. She raised a very relevant question. These people know what they are doing, they know the right farming practices, they know how to grow these things, but the issue is, how do they sell it? So let's assume that you are growing cassava, you know how to grow cassava. I said something earlier on. Is cassava the right thing you should be growing? That's the question. Is it better for you to grow millet instead of growing cassava? Now, if you grow the millet, what is your market? Is it better for you to sell this as raw produce or sell this as processed food?
Joseph, before we bring you in, Professor Ayola, again, this is another area, extension services. So how much is too much and how much is ideal for you to be efficient under CLAP?
Yes, there's no way you can put a package like this together without integrating it with critical services. And in terms of extension, traditionally extension services belong in the regime of government, particularly the state government. And indeed, the dwindling fortune of Nigerian farming situation is closely tied to the dwindling fortune of the extension services that are disappeared in our policy space gradually. If a private sector, just like a business organization, if it's producing without being interested in how and where to sell in terms of exposing his services, exposing his products to the would-be consumers, he will fail in the end. So CLAP is in order to take a slice of extension components that will help the targeted audience to understand the program better. So we also talk of private sector extension. If you know the history of the Nigerian Tobacco Company in this country, they simply latched on the market through extension services, and they were not government. People who grew tobacco for them, they concentrated in making sure that services in terms of knowledge, in terms of inputs, are always constant with them. And that is why for decades, they did not fail from the market. Now, CLAP is thinking in that direction. Private sector extension programs are good and complementary to what government is doing, particularly when government is dancing backwards about what extension services should be. Right now, we are not enjoying it.
All right, Professor Ayola, thank you very much. Again, Dr. Tani Josie. Dr. Tani Josie, can we have the benefit of any foreign examples you may wish to cite with regard to how at the micro level agriculture has been ramped up, leading to a boost in food production and therefore food security?
Well, we have several examples with us. First of all, if I talk about India, we came up with a district development program. Districts are similar to your LGAs. So as India is a pretty big country, so there was very much difference in a way one district grows and the other district grows. So we have to identify the local needs of one particular district with the another district. So what exactly happened is there were certain areas wherein we could find out that there was big difference, a classified difference between two districts within an area of even 50 kilometers. So we have to customize agricultural needs and the requirements according to those district area plans. Now when we talk about this particular approach, the only important thing is when your funds, it flows down, and when your structure of your the government structure, when it comes as a pyramid, and when it comes to the fund, the pyramid is inverted. So we have to take care of this. When your funds flows down, when your structure flows down, we have to see how we can hold this situation. When we talk about this project, I must tell you the most important part which has been taken care of during the development of this project is the 5 Rs. When we talk about 5 Rs, it's the right technology which is most important at this point of time. I see there are most of the archaic methods of agricultural farming that are being used. The right inputs, there are lack of inputs, there are certain fertilizers and pesticides that, well, I cannot find it anywhere. The right product. When we talk of right product, our chairman rightly said, we have to, we have to really develop the value chain that we have right now, and we have to see the major gap and the differences between the agricultural value chain where we can fit in what we need, the kind of infrastructure. You were talking about the infrastructure. Our first and the second objective of this project, the third objective of this project is to foresee the kind of infrastructure we need to develop in these areas. And the fourth of our R's is the right place. And the right place, of course, is the gap and the need identification in particular areas. And the right time is now when the CLAP program has come in.
Dr. Tani Joshi, thank you. We'll get back to you. Let's get back to Mr. Kachukwu. Mr. Kachukwu, the farming at the local government level, mostly still rudimentary, traditional. Most farmers, of course, small holder farmers, they use, hoes and cutlasses, of course, to prune weeds and all that. CLAP promises to expose, such farmers to high-tech, technology. Now, does it also, take this class of farmers, those who operate within maybe 1 hectare farms? Do you also consider the fact that this might be too cumbersome for them? And do you also have a model that will address the cost of the products that this class of farmers produce?
That's a good question, yes. Like I said, in every local government, we have one integrated model farm. And in that integrated model farm, we have, say, 1 hectare devoted to maize, for example, where we show them how using modern farming techniques can increase the output in that 1 hectare of land. Okay. Secondly, the second question is, can they afford modern farming techniques? So what CLAP is doing is working with local international partners, government agencies like NESAL, Seed Agency of Nigeria, Agricultural Insurance, you know, because they're all part of this plan. What we're doing is to ensure that you can't afford to use this tractor, but if you use this tractor, your output is going to increase. When you get your output, remember, we're off-takers. So if you can't pay upfront, at the end when your output comes, we value the output as against the service and take that output and put into the and we get our money that way. We have NISAL now that is guaranteeing investments in the agricultural sector. Okay, so what we have done is essentially created an ecosystem that benefits everybody. For the existing farmers who want to take from farming or making it from being farmers to agripreneurs, to those intending agripreneurs, to government agencies, to the market, both local and international markets. That's the ecosystem of CLAP.
All right. Just what was the reaction? In particular, what kind of questions did Algon ask when this idea was tabled before them?
Algon, they were very excited. We worked with the immediate past president of Algon, Ibrahim Karaye. They loved the idea of being able to create a stronger local economy, to create jobs. They loved that idea, and they wanted to, especially now they're talking about financial autonomy at local government level. So this for them gave them the opportunity of having strong economies at that level. But some of the challenges you typically face with anything that has to do with government is sustainability, continuity. We went for the former president has left. We have a new person in trying to get buy-in for them to understand the importance. Like you saw, we just had a seminar last week, and it was disconcerting to see the level of participation from a lot of these local government chairmen. We had some people, especially from the north, you know, busloads of youth from the north saw the conference and brought themselves, paid for themselves. They got there. We had some state governments who were represented from the north, and one from the southwest came and wanted to buy into the plan. So for us, what we are doing, we have scarce resources. This started as...
How many local government chairmen were at the function?
We had, I think, about 11 or 12 out of 774 local government chairmen.
Well, you have not accounted for some local governments that are fully urbanized and therefore probably will not have direct interest in all of this. Professor Ayola, again, let's say, you know, bring it back to the CLAP and then the bottom-top approach that we're talking about. Yes, it's interesting to say that local governments now will be made the engine of agricultural production, agricultural growth, and therefore economic growth. But are there other things that we should worry about? For instance, he just talked about the fact that you are having to sensitize, they are having to sensitize a new set of herdsmen at Algon. You have political changes, you have all kinds of interferences, and then you also have policies at the federal level or at the state level that might impact negatively on all of this. What is required to be done? Is it a hopeful project or something that...
Very, very hopeful, but we need to be mindful of possible bottleneck areas. One that comes to my mind very immediately is the distinction between agriculture and agribusiness. Even though they are complementary, one is growing from the other. We need to properly understand agriculture at the local level. At the local level, for Nigeria today, agriculture remains agriculture, a traditional practice. If 70% of the people are still locked up in that, then we have to be mindful of the rate at which we want to transform them from agriculture, from culture to business. Because agriculture started in a particular way. So while this intervention settles down and is moving on, he must be mindful of the way farmers behave at the cultural level also, so that we will not run into the type of situation we ran into in the last dispensation. that made so much distinction between agriculture and agribusiness as if they are either or possibilities. They are not either or. We heard that agriculture is a business now. It's no longer for development. That type of statement is born out of our lack of understanding of what agriculture is at the local level. Agriculture is a major repository of poverty in this country. And poverty is the business of development. So how can we reduce poverty without making agriculture what it should be first? So it is development and it is also business. We don't want to distinguish between the two too seriously.
Well, Professor Ayola, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who is president of African Development Bank and former Minister of Agriculture.
He's my friend.
Yeah, to take you to take you on this aspect, because I mean he has been very emphatic. We've had him on this program a number of times. He's saying, look, agriculture is not a development agenda. Agriculture is a business, and that's the way you can get them going. But that's for another day. Let's take reactions now from our viewers by way of tweets. Festus Akimboyewa has this: our local agricultural plan should be redesigned to encourage more skilled people into farming through apprenticeship. Also, our universities should be encouraged to offer degree courses in food engineering. Is this different from food technology?
All right, let's quickly get on. Stanley tweets, modern farm implements, improved varieties should always be made available to the local farmers, and this must not be politicized.
Abubakar Kadir tweets, if Nigeria can focus more on agriculture with the right policy implementation, we're going to have a sustainable economy and therefore lift up ourselves.
And Ewa tweets, our local agriculture plan should be redesigned to encourage more skilled people into farming through apprenticeship. Also, our investors should be encouraged to offer degrees. Okay,
this is part of what had just been mentioned. Then, Dele Jack Solomon, formulated agricultural policies in Nigeria should be geared or focused towards providing opportunity for Nigeria's growing ranks of agribusiness.
And Jibril, again, Naina tweets, the plan is good and applaudable. It's obvious. What is needed is more support from government and private sectors.
Mohammed Sadara tweets, C-LAP should include easy access to land, interest-free credit, and markets in both local and international environments, and schools should not be left out.
And Mohammed Jamil tweets, the best incentive to sustain C-LAP in local government areas is improving basic amenities, coupled with replacing crude implements with modern tools.
And Mahmoud Haman tweets, the agric revolution the nation is aspiring to cannot be realized unless the animal production sector is given equal importance as crop production.
And finally, Ibrahim Tudu tweets, we must do something so urgent. Farmers are still not accessing loans. There is still bureaucracy at the level of local agric loans.
All right, those are the reactions that we have in the meantime. Let's get again the thoughts of Dr. Tane Joshi. Dr. Tane Joshi, earlier you talked about the examples that you have in India with regard to what is happening at the district level, which is the equivalent of our local government level. I don't know how long you've been around in Nigeria and what snippet of information you have about our agricultural practices. What, in your opinion, are some of the critical challenges that our rural farmers face? Some of them we know, but from your perspective on a comparative basis.
Well, I must tell you, the major challenge we have here is the technology. The technology, what I saw from here, I've looked at the greenhouses, I've looked at your irrigation practices here, the seeds. If the seed is good, everything is good. When you look at the seed, I saw the varieties, the kind of varieties are being used here for the cultivation of maize, for tomatoes, or even for rice and sorghum. The main issue is the varieties we are using are not good. The varieties that you have been using here were being used almost 10 or 12 years ago in several parts of the world. So, in fact, I'll take a case of tomato. We visited a farm here. The tomatoes, the person who is growing tomato for a commercial cultivation purpose, he has the indeterminate type of variety. Indeterminate type of variety is a variety wherein there is no timing and no size the plant grows. It can grow up to any extent. Furthermore, these kind of varieties had no same fruit setting or the flowering time. When you have such kind of varieties, you are pretty much going towards.
Dr. Joshi,
yes.
Sorry, I have to stop you at this point. We've eaten up all our time, but I'm sure your points have been made. Dr. Tani Joshi, Chief Operating Officer of the C-Lab project, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we also like to appreciate Mr. Dumebi Kachuku, who is the Chairman C-Lab project. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And Professor Bolagade Ayola, Professor of Agriculture, Economics and Policy, and Chairman Voices for Food Security, VFS. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
That's Good Morning Nigeria, our discussion segment. We now get on with our complimentaries.
All right, let's go to sports right away.
Paris Saint-Germain powered into the last 16 of the Champions League on Tuesday with a